Well, hello there, everyone. Thank you for joining us. If you're here in the DC area, it's a little bit cold, a little bit wintry. So we hope we can warm you up with some entertainment today with Neeraj's great tips that he's going to be providing us. I'm Vinu Deschetti. I'm the Director of Sales and Marketing here at Aplusify. We love bringing these webinars out to you. We learn a lot in the process of working with our nonprofit and association clients, and we like to share that knowledge with everyone out there. So a little bit housekeeping before we get started. Everyone will be muted during this webinar. If you have any questions, definitely put that in the chat box or in the Q&A, and we will get to it as we can. We will definitely leave time for questions and answers at the end of the session. So, but don't be shy, definitely pipe in when you've got those questions. Today's webinar, again, it is being recorded, so we'll make sure that you get a copy of the recording and as a copy of the slides for your information as soon as they are available. It usually takes us a couple of days, but we'll get that out to you. So let's get started. Today, we are talking about something that's very near and dear to my heart, the event apps. Assist you with your event and meeting data that you want to sync in with Salesforce. Neeraj is our Chief Operating Officer here at Aplusify. He works with all of our developers and creates task force on various topics, but mainly on associations and nonprofits. And what he does with those developers, he's taking those lessons learned, those best practices, share them with the developer so they're taking it back to our client portfolio, as well as so that they can make the most out of our services to our clients. But in that process, he's also a big collector of all of these knowledge and tips. So he's going to take us through a presentation today. And Neeraj, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Vinu. And I think this topic is close to me as well. And I think let's get started and feel free to ask any questions if you have in between.
So, before you start, Neeraj, I actually have a, while you're sharing your screen, I have a poll that I would like to have everyone take. We just want to hear from you to see if you guys have you currently integrated any of these event apps into your Salesforce? And if you haven't, don't worry about filling out the poll, or if yours is not listed, we'd love to know which ones you have. Just put that in the chat section. It will definitely help guide us today. I think a lot of the principles that Neeraj will be talking about today apply. It's specific to Salesforce, but can be applied to any CRM or AMS that can do an integration. All right, Neeraj, I see that you're sharing our screen.
Yeah.
Let's get started.
Yeah. So I think to set the scene for this webinar, I think it's very important to understand that why do you actually need to integrate your event app with your AMS, right? Most of the times when we have talked to our customers or global clients, right, they are in the confusion that what is the checklist that they should see, or what are the things they should actually know before they start thinking about the integration stuff. So I think the first slide, we are actually going to talk about some of the checklists, right, where you can actually check box. It's a kind of checklist where you can actually tick box and say, are you able to answer these questions? And if you are able to answer these questions as yes or no, I think it will actually help you to understand whether you want to integrate your events app with your AMS tool or not. So I think the first and the foremost thing that you need to do is, because it involves integration of an event app with your AMS, which can be Fonteva or Salsa or Nimble, whatever it is. So it requires a technical skill or a technical team who has that expertise in doing that, right? It should not be a team which does not have the experience to do it. So I think the first and the foremost question ask to you and to your team is, do you actually have the technical skills which would ensure a seamless integration of your AMS with your event app? Now that team can be your in-house team, right? If you have technical experts in your team who has done that job before, but if you've not done that, you should actually look for a third-party consultant who has actually done this job, and start exploring them and see what they have done, what they have not done. So I think the first and the foremost thing is that you need a expert to do this integration. So the question should be, if I don't have that technical skills, I should search for a third-party consultant. And if I'm not comfortable in the third-party consultant as well, I think we should drop the idea of integration then, because technical skills are required. Then the second
Neeraj, I'm going to
question
interrupt you really. Oh, sorry. Neeraj, sorry to interrupt, but your slides aren't moving. Yeah. Do you mind showing us the first slide?
Oh, can you see it now?
No, you're still on the title slide. And if you're having trouble, I'm happy to bring it up.
Is it moving now?
No, oddly enough. It's like the
let me stop.
The webinar gnome has taken over.
Let me.
Yeah, while you're pulling that up, Neeraj, I know from my background is in a meeting and an event planner by trade, and I come from an era where integrating, the data that you get out of your system, out of your event registration, we used to do them by paper. So just imagine the technology has come quite far. So having been able to go from paper to spreadsheets and now having registration systems and looking at that and getting much more information than just what you're collecting at registration, looking at how you're pulling that information, what membership information can you correlate to registration or fundraising? Can you tell a path of how many, of the people that attended, how much have they given in the last 5 years? And a lot of that data is data that probably your leadership, your key stakeholders want, probably you want as well, so that you can better develop a better conference, a better event. And a lot of us have done that outside of the system, taking spreadsheets, doing pivot tables, doing correlations, VLOOKUPs, all of that good stuff. But if you have the capability of being able to integrate that within your AMS and CRM, you've just made your Salesforce instance that much powerful. You're going to get that ROI back because it's all under one place. Neeraj, I see you have your screen up, so I'll let you take over from here.
Okay. Yeah, that's good to have. I don't know what the problem was. Sometimes it's like weird, right? You are able to see the screen moving and then the others are not. All right. So, so I think since the slide is up, right? I was talking about the point one, which is this one, where it says like, does your team have the technical skills required to ensure a seamless integration? I think that is a valid point to ask, because you should be absolutely sure that you have got the technical skills under your belt who are experts who can actually do a seamless integration. So that should be point one. And then you should be looking at, like, why do you want to integrate, right? Because the main point of integration is cross filtering of data, right? So that you have your members in your AMS system, right? And you want to actually understand your members better, whether they are attending those events, right? Kind of dual kind of analytics on them. So you need to understand what kind of analytics are you interested in. Is it just the registration? You just want to run the analytics on how many people have registered for your event, or is it beyond that, which is more about post-event analysis, right? Where you understand what topics were they interested in, what booths they visited, and all that kind of information. So if you're looking for post analytics information and beyond that, I think you should actually go for an integration, because that would actually help you run a lot of analytics on your data, which will help you to understand your members better. Now, when we talk about integration, right? So integration has to be seamless. Now, it can only be seamless if you have an interface which connects your event app uh, to your AMS, right? So if you're using a system like Fontiva, which is built on Salesforce, all right, and you're using Fontiva Events app, which is also actually a Fontiva product and built on Salesforce, it would be very seamless to integrate because the background platform is the same. So you will not need to require an API or any kind of stuff that for integration. But if you think that your platform is on a non-native Salesforce app, you should actually have that question whether I do have that interface to connect with our AMS. So that is something that your technical team can answer, but it's always good to ask. Then I think the next question should be, are you wasting a lot of time in syncing data between your event app and your AMS? So do you need, uh, uh, since these systems are not integrated, so are you doing manual batch processes which are actually porting the data from your AMS system to event system and from the event app system back to that? So if it is a manual process, obviously it's prone to errors and it would be time consuming because it's not automated. So if you think that you are wasting a lot of time in syncing your data, I think integration is a must for you. Now, this fifth point is actually very interesting because sometimes I remember one of our clients, he says that our target audience or our members are actually very tech savvy, right? They want everything seamlessly. They want everything on mobile. They want a very good UI, a seamless experience for everything. Now, if you are catering to that kind of crowd, you need to provide them with that kind of seamless experience. And for that, I think an integration is a must. So obviously that is not as important as a point, but since our interactions with our clients have been like that, I thought we should actually include that point as well. Now, this last but not the least, uh, technology, as you know, right, changes very fast. So you may be using an event app or an AMS, and then you're not happy with that, and you think, oh, this is something which is not working for me, and I'm going to change it in the next 6 months or in a year. So if you are planning to do that, then don't plan for an integration, right? Because then what will happen is that integration will be of no use. So suppose you are using an AMS which you are not satisfied with and you want to change it, and your technical team says, look, let's integrate it with the event app. Now, as soon as you change the EMS and move it to some other AMS, right, that whole integration will be like a waste of money, waste of effort for you. So you should make sure that you are using that, planning to use the same AMS, planning to use the same event app for the next 2 to 3 years at least, so that you can actually get that return of investment on the technology investment that you have done. So I think these are some of the key points that would help you to understand whether your system actually needs an integration or not.
You know, Neeraj, I think it's really interesting, the last point that you were talking about, the long-term planning of whether you're going to use these systems to going forward. You know, there are, you know, what we often see, you know, oh, integrate your systems, and it seems very easy. You just match the fields and you're done. And I'm sure there are integrations that are very simple like that. But most often what we see are integrations that are more complex, that go beyond just field mapping, right? Sometimes there are workflows and triggers that are involved. And I'm sure you'll get into a little bit about that further down when we talk about the integration. But I'd love to hear more about some of the benefits that you know that come out of this integration. What do you actually get when you do the integration?
Yeah, I think that is a valid point that every integration should have benefits. And I think our next few slides are going to talk about that. So I think these are some of the major benefits that you get out of the integration. Now, if imagine a scenario where you don't have your event app integrated with your AMS, right? Then all your data that you collect in your event, right, that would actually be posted back into your AMS system only after the event, right? It cannot be real time. So you cannot have a real time data of your event because the data is not synced and the system is not integrated. So one of the major benefits that you get out of integration is real time, right? And things people want real time stuff now because the event run for 3-4 days, right? People forget you after a day or so. If you are not able to contact your leads or members real time, I think you are at a big loss. So I think if you want real time event reports, event app integration has to be there with your AMS. Now, if you have a real time event report and you are able to have a strong traction on your leads, obviously it would help you understand your target audience better, right? Because you will understand what kind of scenarios they are interested in, what kind of topics they are interested in, right? Maybe you can collect session information about them and maybe present them with similar information the next day, right? So obviously, your target audience would love that because everyone wants that you should be able to understand them, right? So that can only happen if you are able to get real-time data out of your system. Now, third point is obviously once you have data flowing between two systems, so you will have both the data which you can visualize, right? So you can marry the event data with your AMS data and do a kind of analysis, right? So which members of your association actually attended the events, which members actually bought event tickets, right? Which went for a full conference pass, which were interested in which sessions. So you can have that cross filtering of data. And once you have that, obviously you can predict pricing for them. You can set some discounts for your important members, give them some complimentary gifts during the events. But unless you have that and you are just dependent on manual stuff, I think then it's an issue, right? You are wasting time in transporting data from one place to another. Plus, you don't get real-time data. So I think these are the major benefits. And in this world where everyone is on his toes, where everyone is on his mobile, social media interaction is so much. Everyone wants to post his photos on Facebook or Instagram right at that kind of moment. So I think we have to be smart enough and understand our target audience and cater them in a fashion. And that can only be possible if we have just one source of truth. And for one source of truth, you need to have one system, which means you need to integrate your system.
Neeraj, before you move
So,
on, I just wanted to talk a little bit more about the predictive pricing. You mentioned a lot of conference and associated related examples of how you can do predictive pricing in terms of whether they're members or non-members or early bird or not early bird. But I think also for nonprofit people in the audience, there's also the predictive pricing in terms of suggested amounts that people should donate based on their past giving or on their frequency of giving, or even predictive models that if you know that if someone of a certain demographic may give more money than of a different type, then you can build those fundraising models, those ask models within the system, and let the AI work be done for you, as opposed to just having, I think we're all very used to having simple forms, donate $5, $10, $15 or whatever amounts that you have. But wouldn't it be great to customize something that speaks to the person that's looking at that ask, especially in this digital world? Like you were talking, Neeraj, if you're on the phone, if you see something that's more relevant to you and customized to you, you're more apt to react to that and take the right action. So you could be leaving money on the table and not asking for the right amount. So this is one way to increase that, not only the non-dues revenue, but the fundraising money as well.
Yeah, sure. I think that is a very valid point and a very good point, because obviously, if you know the kind of donors in your system, and that can only happen if you marry the two systems. Because unless you marry the data between those two systems, you can never predict that kind of pricing or discounts or that fundraising model, right? So
Right.
I think if you want to build a data model to understand your customers, you have to marry the data between the two systems.
Yeah. Now, what I find interesting, I think as time goes and as technology improves, I find that a lot of executives are looking for more of that sophisticated analytics, right? That insight into what, we have all of this data, we should be able to magically show certain information. And so not only are do they know that information is available, but also the timing of it that they want. Before we had all of these great tools, it was a matter of let me crunch the data and get it to you. But now with the integrations, all of the AI work that's being done, it can be done more quickly. So I'm excited about some of these reports and dashboards that you're going to share with us. I think from a visual standpoint, it really can speak to a lot of executives, a lot of marketing people that need information, data analysis brought to them in a visual way.
Correct, right. I think we can just go to that visual part where I think each of these points can be better explained. So the first point which I was talking about, which was the real-time reports. So this is one of the dashboards, as you can see, a visual representation where you can get different reports in the dashboard. You can view the kind of revenue you are able to generate through your event. You can view all these reports. So the revenue report, registration revenue pre-April 10. So pre-event revenue, then post-event revenue. That also you can have your revenue tier-wise. You can have that. How many sprints registered for your event pre-April, and then depending on different tiers. So all this information, right, which I think is very useful because when you are organizing events, I think they are more to do your branding. And when we say branding, it means that people should know about your brand, people should know about your association, and that is that branding which brings in money for your events, right? So you don't know like how much revenue you collected through selling of tickets, through providing full conference passes, right? What kind of discounts you have. So if you have that kind of dashboard which is visible maybe to your senior management, right, they would be excited, right? They would know whether that event was actually successful or not, because for them what work you have done, right, they don't know much about it, but I think what output that event has produced, that is more useful for them. And if you can show these kind of real-time dashboards to them, I think that would actually stamp success for your event, right? Otherwise, just sending them Excel reports and then calculating what went wrong, what were the data that is there, that is not there, I think that is a very tedious task. And we were able to pull these kind of dashboards for our clients, right? So, and it looks good, right? Where you have all these indicators, green, yellow, red, and you see all these green figures. You can see these 6 revenue figures in your report. So that's pretty good. Gives you a positive feeling about your event.
Yeah, and Neeraj, just to talk a little bit about this particular dashboard and how it is, I like how you can customize the benchmarks of saying what do you deem as successful, what do you deem as not successful. It just kind of visually represents what do you need to work on, what are the threats that you have to your event. Are you meeting your goals for registration? What I also find interesting about this, you're saying that senior management can have access to this dashboard in real time. And I don't know about the rest of you guys joining us today, but I've been in situations where executives have access to this dashboard, but they do not look at it. But what I do like is that being able to say, if they ask me for the information, I can say, hey, I got it for you. Here it is. And it's right at my fingertips. I think I see more of that experience as executives Or, I find it depends on how savvy your executive is in terms of using Salesforce and technology. But even if your executives don't look at it, it's a great tool to have, just to be able to glance at it and know you're either on a good path or you've got some work to do.
Right, that's very true, right? And I think uh, people are becoming more tech savvy now, right? So I think your management also has to be tech savvy if they actually want to succeed in this kind of events.
That's not going to stop them from asking.
Yeah, true. Then I think when we were talking about the targeted audience, right? If you see in the screenshot, right? Because since we have integrated everything, right? You can easily run these kind of campaigns, right? Because you know what data you have collected in that event, what your recipient list should be, so you don't have to just keep on typing the attendee's name, or you just need to have a list which you can just drop in here, and then you can customize your emails and your content, right? And it's quick, right? So a person attends the event, right? So you can send pre-event mails, you can send post-event mails, you can capture their replies, and then maybe run different campaign emails after the event, and that to all real time, right? So imagine a situation where a person visited your booth, right? If you're having a physical event, or if he's actually visited it virtually, right? And sending an email to him in real time that thank you for visiting our booth, and this is our contact details, and these are your details. And so it looks that you are proactive, right? Otherwise, if your event app is not integrated, right, he will come, you will talk to him, and the next moment he's on a different event, right? He forgets about whom he has talked to. So I think it's always good to have that kind of interaction, which is more proactive. And that is how you are going to generate more leads for you and get that kind of success rate from your event.
And
I really like
in
that feature.
terms of in terms of email marketing and targeted campaigns, each event app is different. Some will just do simple, straightforward reply emails on it, your transactional type of emails about registration, about confirming donation amounts, those kind of things. So there's that application where you've got just the transactional emails. But then you can also have more sophisticated emails that does some of the predictive analysis that we're talking about. And those can be done with another app. So using Salesforce as your hub, you can put in, I should have done a diagram of this, but you can have Salesforce as your hub and have your event app connected to Salesforce, then also have your email, sophisticated AI email platform also connected, so that if your event app doesn't do sophisticated email marketing for you, you have your email marketing that can. And if they're all connected with Salesforce, then you can be really smart about the type of campaigns that you send out there. And that type of connection, that type of API that you need to do may not be as simple as just matching the fields, right, Neeraj? There may be a more complicated integration there.
Right. It might be a more complicated integration, but if you're using Salesforce, right, as your hub, then one of the main advantages you get with Salesforce is it has got AI implemented on it, right? It has got beautiful dashboards and reports. It has got a mobile user-friendly interface. So you get all these extra features built upon it. So you just feed in data into it, and you can just run your analytics, artificial intelligence, pull dashboards and reports in Salesforce Hub, right? So the only thing that your event app is actually doing is just pushing in data into Salesforce. And then what you're also doing is you are actually marrying your marketing data with your sales data, right? So you can actually see how your marketing lead has nurtured and actually gone to the sales and closed, right? So that kind of user story you can get for your lead right from the event level till it gets closed in Salesforce. So I think the more integrations you do, the more one system you have instead of silo systems in your org, right? It's always good, and that is the beauty of using a CRM, right? Unless it has data, there is no point in using it as well.
And so Neeraj, before you jump off of this and show us more reports, the other thing that I wanted to mention is that email APIs have gotten so just amazing. Gone are the days where you just put in your first name or, put in the address. They've gotten to a point where you can really create a journey for them. So imagine if you have a fundraising campaign that goes out and it is tied to a fundraising gala. You send out email number 1 and they don't respond. Without a sophisticated email campaign, then you probably would just keep it on your radar, pull all of the people who were invited and haven't registered for that gala or haven't donated and send them another email. But what's great about some of these email campaigns like email systems like Campaign Monitor, you can actually set that journey. If they don't respond within 2 weeks, then send them email number 2. The messaging may be different. You can also do testing campaigns. We have to do another session on just how that can all work, Neeraj. But I just, my point is basically that you have all of this data and you can set up the automation in there to not only make your life easier. I mean, there is work that's going to be involved in planning these campaigns, but it will automate things so that you're driving more of the fundraising, more of that revenue that you're looking for. And I think after you try it once and you see the success, the potential of it, and you learn, you may not get it right the first time, and that's okay, but you got to start somewhere. But you'll see that improvement as you go on, and you're also training the people that you're sending these emails to expect different behavior from your organization, and their behavior will also change. Okay, enough about that. Let's show us some more reports.
Yeah. This was the cross-filtering data I was talking about, right? So you have got your AMS data into it, and you can see, right, this is actually a list of attendees that have canceled the invitation. So you know the type of tickets they purchased for the events, right? And this is the list. So this is just a sample list so that you know like which of your members have pulled out of the conference, right? And maybe that's helpful as well because you can actually approach them and ask the reason, right? Why they have done that, because it's always good to understand why they have declined rather than just not approaching them, because unless you have integrated these two systems, you will never know before the event that they have canceled the event, because you will not be able to correlate these kind of data. And since you have done that and you have that marrying the systems data between the two systems, you can always go and ask, and maybe there might be some reasons, and you might be able to convince them or provide a solution to their problem, and they might be able to attend the event. It may be that they are not interested in that particular date, or they might have some issues with the discount stuff or maybe pricing, right? And you can adjust the pricing and do a lot of different things just to make them attend the event. So instead of waiting, you can be proactive and pull these kind of reports so that you can actually proactively take some action and do a prevention measure, right? So as we say, prevention is better than cure. So prevention can only be taken if you are smart enough and you have that systems integrated and you have that kind of reports which you can see beforehand.
You know, Neeraj, what I like about that report that you were just showing, that it brings in two different types of objects, right? It's bringing in event information from the event API, and it's also bringing in information from the account. So in particular in this report, it seems like I would be able to run a report and say, give me everyone from this organization that's either whatever data, in this case, canceled for the event. But being able to have that visibility, again, what we've been talking about is not not looking at event information in a silo. You're now able to bring in all the other information that you have about that person or that organization.
Correct. And you can pull different kind of reports, right? You can actually pull in reports of people who have actually donated the money, right, for your event, right? And you can actually calculate like what are the type of donations they have given. You can pull that kind of donation report as well from the system because you've got the system data. And then you can put in that kind of dashboards in where you can have different types of reports. And they are like real time, so you can pull it easily. You can have multiple dashboards with different reports into the system. And I think when we were talking about predictive pricing, where I told that maybe you can give freebies to people or your members whom you think you want to, and show them that you are valuable for them, all right? And then maybe, so all these things can only happen if you have the data between the two systems, so you can actually see what kind of members would be interested in what kind of pass, what kind of events, and accordingly you can analyze and give them different kinds of discounts or freebies, and pricing also you can set depending on your members. And this can only happen if you have got these two systems integrated, because all this data, if you see, is actually coming from an event app into your AMS, and you can actually have a full view of what is happening in the two systems, who are the speakers, and even your members. When you integrated your event with the AMS, right, your members can log in and see the type of tickets, the type of event, what would be there in that event. They don't have to log into two different systems. They can actually go and see that kind of information in one system.
You know, I've seen this come to play, especially with nonprofits that do like leadership summits or events for their member nonprofit organizations. And they want to have registration that's scalable based on whether, you know, how much the organization brings in revenue or grant funding, or even income for individuals, and those types of things. This is a great way to be able to do a scalable model based on different data points that you have. Instead of having someone submit the information, you think it over, you see where they fall in the chart and get back to them. This can automatically do that for you. And then on the association conference side, what I'm seeing a lot of, especially now that a lot of associations have gone virtual with their conferences, they've had the transition to virtual. Now they're looking at going live and even doing hybrid events. So taking a look at how to do that pricing model for that, you know, how do you price it out if someone's going to go in person versus hybrid? And instead of listing 100 different tickets out, that all your different combinations, what you can do is program that in on the back end and have that displayed based on the data points again. So if it's it can be someone that it could be board members, it could be whether they want to do hybrid or in person. There's so many different applications for this. One of the things that I would recommend is before you maybe go in, figure out what your options are, but don't go in there and program too much. Think about exactly what are those options that you want, what is it that you want to predict, what is it that you want to offer, and then go in there and actually do the programming work of setting it all up.
Yeah, that's true. I think if you've got the data points for your system, you can actually build a data model on top of it. So I think once we have discussed the benefits, it's very important to understand what you actually want to integrate, right? Because when you're integrating two systems, you have data in both these systems. Now, you have registrants who are in your AMS systems, in your event management system. Then you have financial transactions, you have session information about the event. Now you actually want to have a clear-cut picture of what you actually want to, which data you actually want to move from one system to another, and which data you don't want to move from one system to another. like if you are using AMS or Salesforce or an event app, right, you should actually uh, may have duplicate information, because the same information may be lying in your AMS system, and the same information, registrant information, will be lying in your event app system. So you need to understand where does that source of truth is, which system has the latest data into it. So that's very important before you integrate. Otherwise, what will happen is, if you just move the data without thinking or distinguishing between correct and incorrect data, things will mess up, and incorrect data will flow into correct data and will corrupt it as well. So it's very important to distinguish that kind of activity before you integrate the system. Similarly, for financial transactions, right, you cannot screw that up. You need to see that if someone has donated that kind of money to your event, where will actually flow it into your AMS system? Which field will it flow into, right? Because if you just map or if you just flow that information into a wrong object, all your financial transactions would be a mess, right? And the reports that you will pull out, right, that will show you a different story. So it's important to understand uh, what level of syncing do you need, do a kind of mapping before your integration. And then it's not important that you actually move all the data from one system to another, right? It may be that there are certain things that you don't want to move into AMS or Salesforce. Maybe there are some content like your users' preferences, right, which you just want to keep in the event app. You don't want to move into AMS because that does not make sense. So just make sure and talk to your business users or the stakeholders, and then try to understand what is the kind of data I'm trying to move from one system to another, because moving everything is not the solution, right? Because then you cannot run right kind of analytics on your system. So it's very important to assess what needs to be integrated. So I think it should be an exercise with your technical team, with your stakeholders, uh, do a kind of mapping and try to get a document where you actually have the information about the mappings, what data needs to be moved, from where it has to be moved, and to where. So this is really, really important. I think we can elaborate more on it. This is just a summary, but I think we can, in our subsequent webinars, elaborate more on accessing what needs to be integrated.
Now, one piece of information you don't want to move over is, do you want chicken or fish? It just doesn't need to come over. But it's that
Yeah.
type of information that is, it's a one-time event-related detail that it'll just clutter up your AMS or yourself.
Yes. And it may be that you may be maybe running a different analytics system on top of your event app or your AMS, right? So if the data is not correct, that analytics tool that you are using might also not be helpful for you, and you might be paying money to them, and then that information is not useful. So it's like you have to be very, very cautious about everything that you move. Now, when you are actually moving your data between two systems, there are three scenarios which happen. So the first scenario is that the data just resides on your AMS system. This will happen when you are actually using an AMS system, and you are not using an event app, or so there is no data in it, but you have just bought an event app, maybe a Fontiva event app or Salsa event, whatever it is, and you want to actually integrate it. So if you want to integrate it, there is just data in AMS, there is no data in event app. Similarly, it can be vice versa, where you are already using an event app, but you have not implemented an AMS. And you actually go and say that I need an AMS, and you buy one, implement it. And then it is the reverse scenario where you just have data in your event app, you don't have any data in your AMS. The third scenario can be that you're using both. So it has, and they are both silo systems and you want to integrate. So it's very essential that you bifurcate these three scenarios and you explain that to your technical team before any kind of integration, because that would actually determine whether it's a two-way sync or a one-way sync. Either data has to just flow from. So in the first case, it would be just one-way sync where your event app would the data from the event app would flow to AMS, right? In the second scenario, it would be again one-way sync because data just resides in one system. But in case of third scenario where the data is both in AMS and event, it would be a two-way sync. So it's very important to determine whether it's a one-way sync or a two-way sync. And if it's a one-way sync, either we are talking about data in only in AMS or are we talking about data only in event app? And most of the confusion lies here. And we have seen a lot of mistakes happening there where people don't realize what they are syncing and things fall apart.
I think one great example is if you ever did a name badge for an event and you print the name badge based off of what the user entered in registration, and they make a typo. If that was a one-way, if that's the information you're taking, if you don't integrate it back into Salesforce, that's great news because that user error doesn't get put back into your Salesforce. But if it does, then you're going to have to figure out which one is the record of choice. So the typo that they've done,
Yes.
and I'm guilty of it too. I'm all thumbs in typing my own name out. So it's those kind of checks and balances. Also, I mean, there's definitely ways you can do a two-way sync, but being able to also make sure you put those checks and balances in place to make sure your data is clean.
Yeah, that's true. Right. And most of the issues that we get when the systems come to us is that the data is corrupt. We are not getting good reports because the records are not there, or either they're duplicate records or missing records. And that is because one of the scenarios was missing. And right. So like you said, name was a typo error, and then it got transported to Salesforce and it corrupted that record as well. So these are very small things if we can take care of it. So I think in this slide, this is what we are going to talk about, things that you should consider for your event app integration. So we generally suggest that we should actually use a native Salesforce event app because if it is not a native Salesforce event app, obviously it will have integration issues. Plus, it would not integrate seamlessly with Salesforce. You will need to check whether it has APIs, and then it requires a complex level of programming to integrate things. So we generally suggest, if people have not bought event app, we generally suggest they buy a native Salesforce event app. Then I told you we should have clearly defined which thing will map to which means that we should exactly know where our donation field will map to the which field in the event app and vice versa. Because if it is not mapped correctly, then obviously the wrong information will flow either ways and it would actually corrupt your data. Obviously, data type mismatches where you need to check whether if it's a date field, the format has to be consistent across two systems. It cannot be DDMMYYY format in one and then MMDDYY format in another system. That would actually screw up your dates and you will never be able to identify what happened wrong. Then I think obviously you have to make sure that the data sync is either one way or two way. Like I told you, it has to be defined whether it's just data in AMS or data in events app, or it's in both, right? So it has to be determined whether it's one way or two way, because otherwise it would create a lot of problem for you. And before integration, right, we always advise everyone to maybe do a kind of data health check in both these systems, where you are able to identify whether the quality of the data in your system is is actually accurate or not, whether the data is consistent in the system, you don't have duplicates, because as an example, right? So if it's a one-way sync where you are moving the data from AMS to the event app, and you have not run a health check on your AMS system, and there are a lot of duplicate records in it, there are a lot of record mismatches, then what will happen is when you are syncing the data from AMS to the event app, all that wrong data will just get transported to the event app as well. And then what you are dealing with is two systems with mismatched records, right? So you had one system before, now you have two systems with absolutely bad data. So it's very important to check these kind of things before. And I think your technical team, if you had a good technical consultant or if your technical team is good, they should be able to tell you all these things and ensure that you have done all these things correctly before you move on with your integration.
Now, Neeraj, we're running out of time here. We do have a question. Someone did ask about what event app do we recommend the most to integrate with Salesforce? So I'm hoping maybe you can, I believe that's the next slide to talk about what's native and non-native, and then the recommendations here as well. Yeah.
Yeah, obviously, right. So as I told you in the last slide, we all generally suggest that it should be a native app. All right. So if you see this list, these are the main events, event apps that we recommend. So Fontiva events is our top priority that we recommend, because I'll just take you to the next slide why we recommend that. Because if you see, right, it can be customized very easily. It is a low budget app, and then it actually caters to all the size of the events. So if you are running a small event, it will cater to that. If it's a large scale event, it will cater to that. So you have all these three ticks for customization, budget, and event scale. So 45 events is the top event app that we actually recommend to our customers, right? C event is already there, but is just for the large scale events. It's not apt for a small event, and that is why you see that dollar value. It's like you need to have a budget for it. And though C event is a native app, but if you are just targeting large events, then I think you should go for it. So these are the type of event apps that we generally recommend. And obviously, if you already have an event app, we don't recommend you to change it because there is a lot of data in that system you already have. We suggest that we find a API for it and integrate it with the AMS or Salesforce, whichever you want to, because generally every event app has an API that can integrate with AMS or Salesforce. It's a bit complex task, but if we do it in a right fashion by following the considerations that I talked about in the last slide, there should not be any issues with the integrations.
It's also a loaded question too, right? It depends how you use your registration or your event app. Do you need it? How you use it? How much of an integration you need? You know, I think one of the things that we need to caution anyone about is everything that we've showed you today is very exciting. It's very promising, right? It would be great. In best case scenarios, it would be great to implement and do. But I would take a step back and really make sure that it's sustainable for you. You can really get into a very complex registration integration or any type of integration into Salesforce. But if you don't have the tech capacity or capabilities in-house, really think about how are you going to manage that. And it doesn't mean that if you don't have it, that you don't do it. You have consultants and third parties that can help you with that. They can help you with the technical aspect. So if you are someone like me that's more on the marketing side and on the event side, they can put together a fabulous event, know how to do registration strategy. You know, I would be very scared to actually do this integration and manage it. But if I had a team that I knew that could do the integration and do it where I'm not going to corrupt the data, and I'm going to be able to get the data that I want when I want it, then that's something, then I know I can go forward to do it. But definitely think long and hard about who's going to be on that tech collaboration with you. And if you are the tech person, think about how much capacity you have as well. There's only so many hours in the day, and you're probably responsible for a lot of the other APIs that you're using in addition to Salesforce. So think about what kind of help do you need to make it happen, because there are options for you also that you don't have to actually do the get down into the weeds to make it happen, or learn a new skill set, or learn coding. There are resources for you out there that can be affordable to go into helping you make this a successful integration for you. I think that's the one thing I'd want to leave you with today, is just to make sure, just be realistic with your expectations, take it easy. Neeraj, I know you also have some words of wisdom for us as well. We've got a few minutes. You can go over this slide, but kind of cap it off for us and let us know your words of wisdom for today.
Yeah, I think you are right. One of the points that we talked about is that you should actually judge your technical skills. And I would suggest that the technical integration, you should actually leave it in the safe hands of a technical team, and you should evaluate that team in the sense that they have done that kind of integration before. They know the processes to do it. They run that kind of data health checks before they integrate the systems. And the second thing I would suggest is, apart from the technical team, if you are someone who is trying to integrate the system, just do a kind of research and find out what event app you have to integrate with, what are the pros and cons of that. And you should always integrate something which can provide you a seamless experience for your users, and it's easy to use. So you should not just think about integration, you should actually see the afterlife of the life after integration, right? It should be smooth for you. It should be smooth for your users. And obviously, you should consider your organization budget, the scale of the events that you would be handling. And I think once you are done that, just collaborate with your technical team and the business team to lay out a integration plan, think about things, do the data mapping, do the health checks, and then integrate the system.
All right. If you have any other questions, I hope we've addressed all of your questions, and I hope that this session was useful for you. If you have any additional questions after we leave today, definitely you can contact us either by email on our website, or you can even respond to the recording that I send over to you. Again, thank you for joining us. Thank you, Neeraj, for all of this good info. Very exciting. And take a look at, everyone else, if you take a look at what our other webinar offerings are, we do have a whole schedule of all sorts of helpful topics, ranging from event integrations to Salesforce how-tos. So definitely take a look at that. Thank you for joining us. Hope you guys have a great rest of the week. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Bye.